Hey, everybody. So, one of the things that I love doing within our student ministry is above and beyond just talking about the Bible and studying the Bible. I want us to know how can we practically put into action and experience what we've been talking about each week. So, over the last few weeks, we've been studying the book of Ecclesiastes, and we've been looking into what it would be like to step outside of ourselves, to have lives that are full of meaning, and to dedicate our time and our energy and our resources and our attention and our talents and everything to other things. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity this week to experience something that maybe you haven't experienced before and kind of be a fly on the wall as part of a discussion with some friends of mine. So I'm going to let them into the room, and then you guys can just enjoy being part of this conversation with us. So here we go. We have obviously Trinity Scungio up in the top left, and one who is affectionately known to all of us as Miss Rainey. She is just below down there in the screen, and now one of us is coming live from a more beautiful destination than the rest of us. So Miss Rainey is is in Hawaii, right?
Yes, yes. One of us is coming from a more beautiful destination. I was going to be outside, but it's very, very windy.
Ah,
And hold on here. I'm sorry. Yeah, but yeah, it is very, very windy here. So I could not stay outside. But yeah, I
oh,
am
look at
here in
that.
Hawaii.
That's incredible. I'm jealous.
Yeah,
All right.
and then and you see the ocean out there. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Okay. All
Well,
righty. Here we
well,
go.
I know that we have a lot to try to cover in a very short amount of time, probably far too short of an amount of time. But we can always come back to this conversation as well. But I'd like to get in as much information as we can. So I told you guys that I wanted to kind of start off with your story as we talk about people who are differently abled. We want to just get to know you guys a little bit, because some of our students will know both of you pretty well. Some of our students will know neither of you at all. And so I'm going to toss it over to Trinity first. Just tell us your story. Tell us a little bit about who you are, why you're part of this conversation with us today, how that journey's kind of been for you.
Okay, so I'm Trinity and I am a sophomore in high school. I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a rare genetic disorder that causes my joints to dislocate. Um, I was diagnosed on October 13th, 2016, my sixth grade year of middle school, and I ended up dislocating and was rushed to the doctor after about a day of my knee just being dislocated and us not knowing it. Doctor said that it was still dislocated, so I was rushed to the emergency room so they could relocate it. It ended up relocating on its own, and the nurse practitioner came in and said Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. We didn't know what it was. We've been trying to find a diagnosis since I was in second grade, and she had to confirm it with the doctor. The doctor said that he thinks it's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but wasn't sure. And we were sent to the geneticist, and that's when we got the final diagnosis that I have hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Hypermobility. Explain what that means for everybody.
So, hypermobility pretty much means I am just very extra flexible. So my knees hyperextend, which they're not perfectly straight. They go back really far. My fingers are hypermobile, so they're all bendy and weird. Some people say that it's creepy. I really don't see it, but that's because I'm used to it.
Trinity's
Um,
just like, this is a cool party trick right here.
yeah. Doctors, when I was younger, just said that it was a deformity and my fingers were just deformed. And that's because EDS wasn't really a thing until about 2 years ago. It's just now being normalized. But yeah, so I have hypermobility, which just means I'm extra flexible.
Okay. All right. And so so since your diagnosis and everything, and even before that, you said you've been looking for some kind of diagnosis in second grade. What is it like to be Trinity with this disability? What's your life like from day to day?
So some days the days just vary. Some days are harder than others. There are days where I'm just in extreme pain and my fingers don't want to write, they don't want to work, they hurt really bad. The littlest movements causes my joints to just dislocate. When the weather is really bad, my knees dislocate. I had 3 dislocations yesterday from it just raining. Um, but I can't do very much. I can't go to a trampoline park or a water park or really anything that has an overpopulation of people, just because it's so much, and one wrong movement can cause my joints to dislocate. Um, so the days, honestly, they just vary. I'm never not in pain. My pain level goes from a 2 to a 14, where a normal pain level would be 0 to 10. Mine's 2 to 14. So I'm in constant pain all the time. Um, and like I said, the days vary. So I could be in pain at a 2 one day, and then that night it could be at 14, and I just can't move.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on the day.
Yep. We actually have a few students in our student ministry that deal with chronic pain from different things, not from the same thing that you deal with, Trinity. But um, okay, let me move over to Rainey. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Hi there. My story is that I was not a differently able person, so to speak. I was functioning as what one would say normal for my life until age 53. I was at that time a 16-year, almost 16-year flight attendant, award-winning flight attendant, the eldest of 12, used to being in charge, used to being independent, accustomed to just being able to go do and be whenever. And then suddenly this happened. What happened was I had a stroke, and the stroke rendered me uh, very, very debilitated and disabled to where the doctors had told my family I would not make it. But thank God I made it. And but the thing is, in making it, I was left with disabilities. So I had to learn again, uh, not again, to learn to adjust in my new world. I don't want to call it in my new normal, but in my new world to make the modifications necessary to exist and to maintain. Um, for me, it was, first of all, what I had to do was become comfortable in my own skin with the disabilities, because for me, even though I was left with a brain injury as well, but what I was doing as I was processing and moving beyond the debilitated state, I was focusing on the things that I could not do. And it's just like this right here. I I now have a heart monitor, and when people look at me, what they when they look, probably what they would do is focus on this and see, and wondering what is that, and rather than uh, catching all the beauty around, catching the entire person. The tendency is to focus on this and to miss, um, and to miss the person, so to speak. Well, that's the way I was when I became disabled. When I had the stroke, I was focusing on this. I was focusing on the fact that now I have auditory processing delay, that now I have, what do you call it, anyway, the problem solving issues where people think when they told me I have problem solving, I say, no, no, I understand 2 plus 2 is 4. No, that's not what they mean. The problem solving was I had to again learn to how to coordinate outfits, coordinate to be able to do things that people just do. For suddenly, for me, they became obstacles to they became the situations to where I had to learn again. As I listened to you, Trinity, I heard you say, with regards to when people look at you and they make these funny, not noises, funny comparisons or what have you, these things that they say in jest, not really understanding. And then with the flexibility, there may be even some people sometimes that wish, oh wow, I wish I could be that flexible. I wish I could do that. But the understanding is not that with this there is a medical condition. That's just like, and I'm going to say this and then I'll stop so Marty can ask other questions. But that's just like this with regards to the way that I speak. I now have an accent. I have not always had this accent. I am from Southern California. But when people ask me regarding where you're from, and I tell them Southern California, they look at me kind of crazy. But this here is another, this is a speech disorder which is called foreign accent syndrome, and it is a rare medical condition. So with it comes medical conditions that kind of parallel the um, the injury to my brain and the things that I have to cope with and deal with and work through. So sometimes when people say to me, "Oh, I wish I had your accent," they're only focusing on what they're hearing or what sounds very nice to them. They miss the part that this is a rare medical condition. So with this accent, with those things that you have there are certain things that is a big part of the entire package. And I'll say this, and also I am now in my 4th year as the chair of the Fort Worth Mayor's Committee on Persons with Disabilities. So I'm an advocate, and I'm excited to be able to do this with you all here for the youth.
Yeah. So Miss Rainey, she actually sits on a lot of different boards as a representative of people with disabilities, so that they have a voice at some of these council meetings and other things where decisions are being made. She's there to advocate for people with disabilities. And so as we talk about this, I hear you guys kind of saying, there's some things with this that people look at and go, oh, that's cool, and you're going, well, you're missing a bigger picture of everything that's encompassed by this disability or this medical condition or whatever it is that different people are dealing with. So some things may seem positive, some things may seem negative, but uh, a better picture may be the whole person. So maybe speak a little bit to the language that we use, because whenever people um, when people hear disabilities or people who are disabled, things come into their mind. What are the things that you think that most people out there, the general population, thinks whenever they hear disabilities or disabled?
You go first, Trinity.
So I Marty called me last week, and for whatever reason, this last week I've noticed my teachers talking about disabilities more, and I think it's because we're going into units about disabilities. And today in my English class, my teacher asked, "What do you think of when you hear the word disability?"
Mhm.
And everybody, I kid you not, said wheelchair, handicap, crutches.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, 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 no. That's no, 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 no. That's not all that is because
Oh, Trinity, we may have lost you a little bit. I don't know if you can still hear us or not. So, but I
You are,
love the point that you bring up. So while we're waiting on Trinity to kind of reconnect a little bit,
Mhm.
let's continue with this a little bit. So, oh, there you go, Trinity.
I think,
So
back.
there's a thought that Trinity, can you still hear us? It's kind of cutting in and out. So you may have to disconnect and then sign back on, and we'll continue the conversation as you do. So the thought that wheelchair, you know, like that kind of stands out in people's minds. I mean, the actual signs that we think of when we think of disabilities or handicapped parking spots and all that, it actually has a person with a wheelchair on it. And so, Rainey, Miss Rainey, could you please speak to that a little bit?
I sure will. And I ran into that. I ran into that very issue when I very first started using paratransit transportation. Paratransit, to bring clarity to that, that is a form of transportation to the transportation disadvantage, such as me. I am not. I have not been in a position to be able to drive for a lot of years because of a lot of these things that are happening with me. And so when if you don't see my the wheelchair, well, back then I didn't have the scooter, I didn't have the walker, I didn't have the cane. I would just walk onto that paratransit transportation. And I knew I had an invisible disability as well as the visual. Well, I knew I had an invisible, the brain injury, but the driver and anybody that saw me did not, because I was not in a sling, I was not in a wheelchair, I was not on crutches, I was not using a cane, I was not using a walker. So to them, I looked like everybody else. And so with that, the just the very way that the dialogue and a lot of information that what my brain was taking in, negative information from people just being negative and complaining and so on and so forth. Even at that time, I didn't understand it. It wore me out. By the time I got to my destination, I was so worn out. Well, what we realized then was, what was brought to the attention of the paratransit system is that they needed to have a sensitivity training for people with invisible disabilities, disabilities that could not be seen. So therefore, to not look for the markers of a wheelchair walker, a cane, the white cane, or what have you, but really kind of be tuned into the person. And so they had to go through a whole different sensitivity training. And Marty, that is a little bit, I believe, of what you're attempting to do right now with this is uh, uh, raise awareness, giving people an opportunity to become more sensitive to people with disabilities. A person that has migraines, they could be a person that could be considered to be a person with disabilities. Um, uh, there's another one that comes to mind.
I saw you post about one today, actually. Little Miss the poet laureate who did the
Yeah.
inauguration. She has what would be an invisible disability, even though when you would talk to her, you might recognize that she has a speech impediment. And so you know, one thing that we've come to know is that 93% of disabilities are not wheelchairs. You know, I mean they're classified as other than what is in association with the sign, you know. And so
Yeah.
there have actually been new models being developed and proposed for how to communicate disability outside of the wheelchair because of that,
Yeah.
because there's a need to be able to see people in a different way other than just okay, you know, handicap with a wheelchair, that's a disability, and nothing else really qualifies, or that maybe there's some kind of a hierarchy that some people are viewed as being more disabled, and because it's visible, we can understand that, but the invisible ones, those are a little harder to understand, harder to empathize with, harder to just I guess be aware of or identify with, because maybe we've never experienced that. I'm somebody who's never experienced chronic pain, Trinity. I mean, I've been in pain. I can empathize with pain, but I don't know what it's like to live from a 2 to 14 all the time. To never have a 0 or a 1 rating. I mean, that's huge. So to be able to talk about the difference between visible you know disabilities and invisible disabilities is important. What else might you say is important to understand about the way that we use our language, the way that we talk about things with this?
Let me approach this by saying, and also Trinity, to let you know, I also live. I have multiple conditions that render me disabled or in the spectrum of people with disabilities. I also have fibromyalgia, which means that is a chronic pain. So I totally get it. I do not ever know what it is to be a zero, or maybe even most times I don't know the to be from a 0 to a 3. So I can identify with you. A very important thing, Marty, for people to understand, and for our young people and everybody to understand, is that Trinity and I, we are not our disability. I am Rainey. She is Trinity. Therefore, I don't. You do not refer to me as a stroke person,
Mm,
or refer to her by the condition that she has. First, you speak to us, you refer to people with disabilities by a person first. Rainey is a person that has had a stroke, that has cognitive impairments, and so on and so forth. You approach us. Let me real quickly just give you an example. Back when I was a flight attendant, I didn't have this understanding. We had passengers that would come on the airplane. The way we would address them is, "Oh, here comes a wheelchair. Here comes a wheelchair passenger." And then at the end of the flight, so we would try to get have the correct number of wheelchairs available upon landing, upon deplaning. We would say, "How many wheelchair passengers do we have on board?" Oh my gosh, I realized what an insult it was, because I was I was ignorant. We were ignorant. And so that people first is a very, very, very important item.
and you'll notice that as I've talked, I talk about people with disabilities, or a person who or whatever, that you put the person first, and that's some of our conversation that you and I have had before, Miss Rainey. um,
Yeah.
as I've talked with others about this, and maybe you guys can speak to this too. There's a bit of a movement also on the other side, on the flip side of that, that says my disability is not something that is inherently negative, and I don't like that people think that it's a negative whenever it is part of my life, and it's part of who I am. And so as I've talked with a couple of other people over the last couple of weeks, they've said, I don't want it to be seen as a negative. I want I don't like the person first language. I would rather you say, talk about what I deal with, because it is part of my overall life, and it's not a negative. Everyone has different forms of of struggles, even if it's not necessarily a disability. Everybody has their struggles. All life is made up of struggle. And so one thing that maybe I guess is my question is, I still think that the majority of everybody appreciates people first language. However, you're going to run into outliers who may think differently about that. And I would assume, and maybe you guys can correct me, is that's part of the reason why we need to have more conversations, why we need to talk through these things, because different people have different outlooks, and it's important to be able to understand those things. So where I may most of the time use people first language, I may come across somebody who's like, why do you do that? Okay, well, please, like, inform me, help me understand. And I think that those things are good to do, uh because you're every once in a while you're going to have outliers, who think differently, and you want to be respectful of how they think, of their journey with their disability.
Mhm.
Is that fair to say? What do you guys think?
Trinity, you go ahead.
Um, yes, it's definitely fair, and I think that it's better to, I guess, not assume
Mhm.
in a way. Um, and like where my disability, it comes off as if I'm faking it. And I know that I kind of missed some of the conversation because the internet was being off. Um, but people come to me and ask me if I'm faking it. And like at school, I've had teachers come up to me, and in 8th grade, I had a knee brace on, and I was in a knee brace for a while. And a special needs teacher came up to me and said, "Well, if you're looking for attention, you sure are getting it." And I remember being so crushed because she couldn't come up to me and ask me why I have a knee brace on, why I go from being in a wheelchair to being on crutches within hours. And so my disability, it's so invisible. And yes, there are days where I have a knee brace on. Yes, there are days where I can't walk and I have to be in a wheelchair. But to have people just assume that I'm faking it, that I want to wear a knee brace for attention, or I don't wanna walk that day, so I'm just gonna use a wheelchair because it's so convenient, and that's not the first person that's done that. I've had 4 special needs teachers within the last 2 years make a comment like that. And it hurts because it's like, I want you to know that I'm not faking it. And if you were to take 5 seconds to ask me, hey, why are you in a wheelchair? Why are you on in a brace? What happened? I would be more than happy to explain that to you. So I think that Marty, the way that you're approaching it with just speaking broadly like that, I appreciate it instead of, like, because one day you're walking and the other day you're not.
Yeah. Well, and I think leading with compassion and and empathy is important. One thing that I learned about is, as I've been talking with people and trying to come to a better understanding, because this is something that I have had to grow in. If I'm honest, like, this isn't something that came natural to me. Like, this is something I have to research. This is something I need to work, even though I don't consider myself to have a disability. It's on me to make moves for others. And so there's a difference of approaches. And I learned something called, the difference between the medical model and the social model. And Miss Rainey, I see you kind of nodding your head. So the medical model basically says, in medicine, we look for a problem that can be fixed, and we try to fix the problem. The social, model says it's up to all of us to bring accessibility, to bring empathy, to bring, a societal change to this, to meet people where they are, and to, like I said, bring accessibility, contribute as a society to understanding, to, uh, Miss Rainey, you kind of talked towards training, and to bring awareness, to speak up, to do different things. And so I think that there's more than just awareness. Like, maybe even our whole paradigm has to shift, for all of us. So can you guys speak to that a little bit?
That is so true. I'm just going to jump right in there because, um, yes, that is so true. It is a paradigm shift. And even with what I'm doing with the mayor's committee, and it's the Fort Worth Mayor's Committee. So what we're doing is we are helping the whole entire city to change the narrative, to change the narrative with regards to people with disabilities and understanding. And so, and that's a tall order. And I've been doing this. I'm now in my fourth year as the chair of the Mayor's Committee on Persons with Disabilities, and we've made some inroads, some powerful inroads. But again, what I'm going to do too is bring it back upon us, to the Trinities and to the Rainies out there, to where, like I told you in the beginning, I had to get comfortable in my own skin, living and not being ashamed. Oh, shame is, ooh, especially for those of us that were normal. And then all of a sudden, we are in this beautiful world of people living with disabilities. The shame that I had to break through. And I thank God for my son. But with regards to what you're saying, and when I say we, for us, we've got to own some responsibilities. In the beginning, I was leaning upon my son to let the doctors or people know, okay, you got to talk a little slower for Rainy, or you need to not be moving your hands so much for Rainy. You need to not be so loud for Rainy. And my son, he was doing all the talking for me, because still I was in the place of shame. And I'm sorry if I get tears, but I was in the place. I was 53 years old, and all of a sudden I'm like a kindergartner, going through speech therapy. I never lost the ability to speak, but going through speech therapy, to be able to see, spot, run.
Mm.
J, all of those, and that was so tough for me. What I realized when my son said to me, "Mom, you're going to have to start speaking up for yourself. You're going to have to be able to tell them yourself that they have to speak slower, that the noises around are too much for you." And so, what I've had to do over the years, this has been a 16-year process. I had the stroke in '04, to be able to make myself approachable, to where, when they see something, though, they know, they say, oh, is there something, do I need to know something? Yeah, yeah, there's something you need to know. And then, like with those special needs, oh, that breaks my heart. It gives me something to think about with regards to our agenda on the committee I serve. But to rather than think and say, and just think, why don't you just ask me? Rather than just think that, be bold to say, you know what? Do you mind? I don't mind if you ask me why I have this. Maybe there's some things that you don't understand. Let's make out. Let's we not only are in the training process with regards to this inclusivity conversation, but we're also educators. You've become now an educator. You and I are educators.
I love seeing the dialogue between the two of you. Just this commonality and common ground that leads you to higher heights. That's incredible. So for other people who may be out there and they're trying to sympathize, but they have no way of fully ever understanding, the life that you guys lead from day to day, the struggles that you deal with, some of the obstacles that you have to overcome from others. That aren't even your own. I mean, you have your own things that you're trying to navigate through and traverse in your world, but then for others to throw in other obstacles in front of you alongside of those things, that's hard. So what would you look at someone like me who may not be able to look and understand fully? How would you say, okay, in addition to your language and you just understanding and being aware, what are some ways that maybe I could do for people who are differently abled or disabled?
I I would say honestly, when someone's talking to me and my parents are kind of really bad about this. They baby me a lot, and I'm often babied, and it bothers me, and, like, I know that they're trying to help, and I'm more than grateful, but there are some things where I just want to do it by myself, do it I have my own independence, and like Granny said, this disability doesn't define who I am. And that took many years for me to actually, grip onto that. Um, but when it comes to me carrying my laundry basket up the stairs, or me making my lunch in the morning, or me setting something up for my little brothers, I want to do that by myself because I still want that little piece of normalcy, just because I'm me. And yes, I have days that are hard, but there are also days where I can be independent and I can do this and I can take my brother to the park because I can walk that day. And so babying is a really big thing for me, and I don't like to be babied. If I want help, I will ask for help. But if I don't ask for help, then I can do it and I will be independent and I got this. So I think asking for help is a big thing, and just
That's so good.
being like, "Hey, Trinity, do you want me or do you need me to help you carry the laundry basket up the stairs?" And if I say no, don't get frustrated with me because I can do it. And so I think babying is a big thing.
That's good. I like that. Miss Rainey.
One thing I appreciate about you, Marty, and that is that your insatiable appetite for learning and knowledge and understanding and what have you. One of the things that you said, which goes right along with uh, what Trinity say to get people to look at it differently. Um, you said you want, or people may want to understand how to sympathize with us. We don't want sympathy. We do not want sympathy. Sympathy does nothing for us except reminds us of where we are. And again, I get tears thinking about that. We don't mind being the empathy. You can empathize with us. With empathy, that puts me in a place of empowerment. It also shifts your focus from, oh wow, this person, it shifts that from, oh wow, what can I do for you, can I help you, what can I do, to, oh wait, okay, what can we do, how can we conquer this, how can we get through, what can I do, what do you need me to do, what is it that I can do. So I trained my kids and anybody around me years ago to, with regard to the sympathy word. I don't give me sympathy. You can empathize until the cows come home.
Uh,
So
sounds like a move from pity to power.
yeah,
Like
that's
that's a,
yeah,
yeah.
that's it. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Good deal.
yeah.
Well, we've kind of run out of time, so I want to close with this, Miss Rainey. I know that one of the things that whenever we talk, and I ask Miss Rainey, how you doing today? The thing that I always hear you say is, I'm blessed, I'm grateful, and I'm thankful. So why do you say that? What's the purpose behind that? Let's close with that.
The purpose behind that is, despite anything that my physical body may be going through, even my relocation to Hawaii, here temporarily for about a month, is for health reasons and to get health resources. And despite the fact I've been in the hospital several times in the last few weeks, despite all the pain that I'm going through, I am blessed, I'm grateful, and I'm thankful. And that's where my focus is. When somebody says to me, Miss Rainey, how you doing? I say, I'm blessed, I'm grateful, and I am thankful.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for taking time out of your days to do this. in the midst of everything else that you guys have going on. I know everybody's just in quite the crazy situations right now with the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. But you guys taking time out of your days to bless us and broaden our horizons a little bit and bring some more awareness to this conversation is so good. And so thank you guys so much for doing that.
Marty, as we're signing off, please, anybody that would like to have my information to be in touch with me, you, Trinity, whatever, please, if you have my permission to give.
Absolutely. All right. Well, y'all have a great day. We'll talk to y'all later.
Aloha.
Wow.
Bye.